This is the voice of freedom. We are not one voice. We are many. We are your voice. But we can only be effective if you use your voice. Your voice. This is the voice of freedom. We will not hide from the truth. We will ask the hard questions until we are sure we have the truth. Welcome to the voice of freedom, where your voice will never be silenced.
Hey folks, thanks for joining us tonight. Put a little message out about half an hour ago saying Ricardo Bosi would be joining me after 8 o'clock this evening for a bit of a chat. Unfortunately, YouTube have decided to take that down for whatever reason, so it remains to be seen how long this broadcast will last. But we'll see what happens. Unfortunately, Ricardo hasn't been able to join us just yet. He's just finishing up his last commitment for his electorate in Greenway before he slots in and joins us. But I have been able to get somebody else to come on and have a bit of a chat with us tonight. Many people may have heard the name. They may have heard me talk to him on various different radios and podcasts over days, weeks and months past. I've been lucky enough to join him on his show quite a lot, particularly in the last week, and it's so nice to finally be able to have him to turn up on mine. Before we get Ricardo to join us, I thought I'd introduce you all to my very good friend, David the Guru Graham. How are you, my friend? Oh, you're up. Let me put you back in again. Your microphone's gone all quiet.
Yeah, that was me. I was trying to keep the background down. Sorry. Yeah.
There you go.
Carl, thank you very much for having me on your show. Yeah, it's pleasure to be on someone else's show instead of mine. Actually, it's a bit different, but anyway, yeah. Look, we're where we are, mate. Night before the big day. It's like Christmas, isn't it? You know, everyone's pretty excited.
It is.
Mate. We're just waiting for that guy, the big red guy, the big red suit to come down the chimney, steal all the votes and run away with them and count them in his own way. You know, like.
Absolutely. There is a lot of anticipation about all this. I don't know whether a lot of it is good anticipation or whether it's nervous anticipation or dreaded anticipation of what might come our way. And that's where I think Ricardo is a steadying influence on everybody. He's usually got some pretty good words for us, and he's very calming. We're not going to rise up. There are no great plans to create rebellion or civil war or anything else. This is not what we're about. This week, I think while we're waiting for Ricardo to join us, mate, it's been a very big week for the freedom movement, with one of the biggest members of it being locked up. Now, you were in Sydney for the rally on Saturday. Do you just want to give us a bit of an idea from your perspective what happened? We've seen the video where Ricardo is dressing the Aussie Cossack down fairly sternly after he was refused access to the stage. We all understand that wasn't a Cossack thing. But you were there, Dave. Tell us about it.
Yeah, well, I was privy to much of it, actually. And as you probably know, if anyone's seen me or, follows me, I don't hold any punches. So I'm just going to tell you exactly what happened. And there's a couple of things that we haven't exposed behind the scenes yet, Carl, but I'll talk to you about it later because we've actually had some more intel in since then, but I don't want to put it out here yet. But basically, in a nutshell, as we all know, the Cossack got on and done an interview with Carl and with Ricardo. And, the two people you're looking at the screen here, actually, people, we'll give ourselves a bit of a plug here, Carl. Okay. And the only way that thing would have come together for the freedom fighters was with me and Carl. Okay, with me having such a good relationship with Bosi and Carl having such a good relationship with the Cossack, because everyone knows that me and the Cossack's relationship wasn't that great until last Saturday. And we've actually, we've had a laugh. I've been on his live stream and, we could talk about that in a minute. But look,
the man himself is getting ready to join us, so let's not mess around. We'll bring him in. Good evening once again. Thank you for your service, Sir Ricardo Bosi. Thank you very much for joining us. We've got about 250 people who've logged in to see just how you're looking at the end of a long campaign. Thank you, sir, for joining us.
Oh, mate, absolute pleasure. Gentlemen, good evening. Lovely to be here. Good to see you again, David. How are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm well, Rick. How are you, mate? Yeah, good to see you. Yeah, you look good, mate. You got a definite aura about you there. You're looking pretty happy and content, aren't you?
Absolutely. I was just thinking, if I get elected tomorrow, we're going to be needing a new Governor General, and I was wondering if you were free for an interview, Dave.
Yeah, we could probably, as long as it's live on air, so I can get all the questions that anyone wants to ask me out of the way first before we step into the position. Rick, no
Gee,
problem.
that's not a bad idea. I like that a lot. That is very, very cool. The people get to have a bit of a, poke in the chest, see if you're a blow-up doll or the real deal.
Yeah, that's it. And that's what we got to do these days, because we're finding a lot of blow-up dolls out there, aren't we? But anyway, that's...
And it doesn't take much of a prick to make them explode, does it?
You just got to know which part to tweak first, don't you, Ricardo?
Absolutely. Goddamn right. How are you?
So it's been a huge week for you. I don't suppose you expected quite the drama out of the rally last weekend. A lot of people have been claiming that you and the Aussie Cossack have got huge problems after that short piece of, well, let me just say, direct speaking that you had together. Couldn't be further from the truth, though, really, could it?
Oh, please. Give me a break. I mean, what are these snowflakes? Whatever happened to Australia? I mean it. What happened to the brave men that defended Tobruk against the Nazi assault? Give me a break. Grow, please.
Yeah,
it's a robust, honest exchange. How about that? That's no more, no less. I was about to
address the point, Rick. Before you come into the studio there, and Carl asked me takedown on it. And look, as I've said to numerous people on my live streams, two grown men, all right, had a bit of a spat, which happens in Australia every day. Okay, that's how we play things. All right, when we ain't happy, we speak up. All right, and unfortunately, someone just had a microphone and a camera too close. You know what I mean? And our journalists, I'm going to say, should know a little bit better that when shit like that's going on, you should just put your camera down and walk away and let it be. But it was like a 5 second, 15 second, tyrant by Rick, which I don't blame him for. But after that, as you saw, people, everything was cool. Now, that's the Aussie way, man. If I want to rip it into Rick, I'll rip it into him. But after I've ripped it into him, it's all over. You know what I mean? Which I've never done.
Exactly right.
Yeah, never had to, never probably will have to. But, yeah.
No. And look, when the Cossack was arrested, you do the decent thing. I mean, that's just a flare-up between two men. It's a big deal. Grow up, give it a rest. When something serious happens, like you get arrested for naming a convicted pedophile. Now, think about this for a second. It's not like he was being charged. This guy was convicted, 13 counts of pedophilia, absolutely convicted, just awaiting sentencing, and yet he is still afforded the protection of the law. Now, please, you put all the petty differences and that thing between me and Cossack. Grow up. Not you guys, obviously. But, gee, I don't know where these people live. They must be under a rock somewhere. Because this is how it's done. It's done. You clear the air. You don't bottle it up and swear under your breath. You confront. You clear the air and move on. And going to see Cossack and his lovely bride, it was nice to see. There was there was his wife, her friend, two others, myself and my security. And I was really disappointed there were so few people there. But, that's what you do. That's what decency is. You stand up for the guy that's done the right thing. And Cossack did a great thing. Just because people cock up, it's not the mistake, it's the recovery. Every time, it's just the recovery. It's all that matters. So, no, I'm right there with you, mate.
And what have we been screaming about for 4 months down at Parliament House, Rick? Expose them. And now Cossack stepped out and exposed them. So now the people need to get behind Cossack and back him up to the hill. Okay, because we've all been screaming the same song. All right, someone's gone and put their foot over the line and done you a favour, right, and open up the conversation. And now it's time for us to rally behind him. I'm telling you, that's what it is.
Oh, and I agree. And look, what happened at Circular Quay, as I said at the time, Mac can do what Mac wants to do. If he wants to tell somebody to get off his stage, fill your boots. I couldn't care less about that at all. But as I said, it couldn't have been better. It could not have been better arranged if a white hat had directed traffic, let's say.
Yeah.
And then similarly, getting okay to go on Kiss FM and then being booted, again, it could not have been arranged better. I think we got more coverage not saying anything than if I'd had a chance to speak.
Yeah.
It's almost like the white hats are in charge, isn't it?
It's been 4 months.
Having had a few conversations with you now, Rick, and knowing the radio industry like I do and knowing Kyle like I do, what would that interview have been like?
I think it would have been fascinating.
So do I. Fascinating is one word.
I reckon you would have lasted about 25 seconds and they would have hit the button and gone, get him out of here.
Well, that
Yeah,
happened.
yeah.
That actually happened when the ABC rang me up, and I knew it was a setup. We were driving down to Canberra, down the coast, the southeast coast of Oz, during the Eden-Monaro by-election. The ABC rang up, so we're going to do an interview. You're one of the candidates. I went, yep, no problem. Knew it was a setup. Didn't know what angle they'd take. But by the time we finished, I was just happy and having a good time, and they were trying to set me up as some right-wing lunatic conspiracy theorist, and they said, well, your views are a bit extreme. We take our information from reputable people. And I said, like who? Like Dr. Tedros, head of the World Health Organization, who was the number 3 man in a communist terrorist government of Ethiopia, and the man who covered up a cholera epidemic in Egypt. You mean you're taking that's the guy you're taking advice from? And you could almost hear the swishing sounds as the producer was saying to the idiot on the radio, quick, cut, he's killing you. But within 24 hours, our bloated foreign minister at the time, Maurice Payne, was out there defending Australia's alliance or close relationship with the World Health Organization, admitting maybe the leadership's a bit dodgy, but generally they do good work. And so every time we do this, we hit hard. We land blows, and they are dancing to our tune. They have been to David, you, me, and the rest of the straight shooters out there.
Yeah.
And you, Carl, they have been dancing to our tune, whether we can see it immediately or not. But I tell you, they are terrified. And Greenway, my God, aren't they just terrified here in Greenway? Oh, baby.
Can I mention something that was just happening about an hour ago? It's probably still on, right? Our crew down there in Canberra, Rick, has been round to the Russian embassy, applauding them, right, and clapping them and telling them that they're with them, okay? And they've actually come out of the embassy, hey, Katie, with their kids to actually greet the crowd, Rick. Now, when does that happen when we ever go to an embassy, mate? The Russians come
man, that is brilliant. That is just so cool. I'm glad the lads are keeping it up.
Well, usually across the road, there's all these tools with Ukrainian flags every day. So the guys have gone there at 6 o'clock, around 6 o'clock tonight, turned up and started applauding the Russians and thanking them and telling them we love them. You know what I mean? And they've come out of the consulate to greet us.
Oh, that is excellent. Oh, man, I wish I'd done that while we were down there. It would have been fun.
Yeah.
Ricardo, what is the feeling in Greenway now that you've been on the streets now for 6 weeks or so? 4 or 5 weeks, I suppose, out there in earnest. I'm getting reports all over the country, and in fact, Neil Mitchell on 3AW in Melbourne yesterday came out and castigated Victorians as being the rebellious state because it looks like neither Labor or Liberal could form a government based on the polling results coming out of Victoria. And Neil's shocked; he doesn't understand why or how that could be at all. So, what are you hearing from both your candidates and from you?
If Neil took his head out of his backside, he could probably see a bit better than he currently does. But what's happening? It's brilliant. Now, there's two sides. There's an upside and a downside. I'll give you the upside first. The morale. Now, I've been speaking to our independent candidates around the country, and they're getting the same message. So this isn't just Greenway, and it's just not Bosi. This is happening to Maddie in Barker and Vince Panel and all around the place. They're getting the same message, and this is what's happening. First of all, certainly in Greenway, they cannot understand how an independent is out recruiting volunteers at the booths, because normally the independent stands there with his wife pathetically trying to get how to votes out, but we have more volunteers than Labor and Liberal put together, and it's just fantastic. I mean, that's the level of energy, and the major parties cannot believe an independent could turn up with this number of people. The second point is we've had a number of volunteers go from the other parties. We'll hand out yours as well, thanks mate. And so they're actually handing out how to votes. We don't need the help, but they're doing it. We've had volunteers say, that's it, I'm changing sides, I'm handing out your how to votes now. So they take off their red shirt, and they've been Labor. They take off their shirts and they start handing out our stuff because they are defecting to us on the ground as the pre-polling was happening. What else?
Wow,
we had one candidate, and I won't say which one. One candidate came up and it was clear the candidate was certain that they had made the wrong decision, but it was too late to change, but they're going to be with us next time. And I tell you, there's going to be this massive exodus from all the other organisations. They're going to come to A1 and become A1 independents. And that's not technically correct. They are genuine independents, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they can't believe they hear the policies, they see the how to vote card, and on mine I've got a summary of the policies, and they just love it. And they see the way, and the last bit of what it's like in our electorate, and again the same around the country, is you got these dour-faced sods in blue, yellow, red and green shirts hanging out how to votes, and they're just sour and desperate. And every time you see the A1 independents out there, they're hugging and kissing and smiling and high-fiving. How's it going? Outstanding. Here's a bottle of orange juice. Here's some chips, whatever. But that whole family feel, and once again, they cannot understand how we generate this amount of affection for each other, genuine affection. And I don't think they ever will till they join us and they realize this is just a family of people that have been working together for a long time now. We believe in the same things. The decency of the average A1 supporter is just phenomenal. Oh, I mean, it's just great. And
Can
so
I
that's
ask one question? Are they hugging to the left? Are they hugging to the left? I've got Katie here, the hugs lady. I just want to know if the A1 are carrying on the left.
No. The trouble is most people do it the other way, and if it's a woman, it's no big deal. But if you're hugging a guy and he goes the wrong way, there's a danger you might kiss. You got to back off a fraction and go around the other way. No, but we're carrying on the heart-to-heart tradition. But I tell you, the enthusiasm, the affection, the decency of our people is just so obvious. The other parties are seeing it, and I got to tell you, next election, and as I said, this is the disruptor. We're not expecting massive results here. This is just a toehold on the beaches of Normandy. But the next one after this, and it's going to be sooner than everybody thinks. I got to tell you, there'll be one game in town, and that's being an A1 independent, because they are genuinely enjoying the fact that we have our bi-weekly sessions with the candidates to help them through technical questions, what to do here, what to do there. The impression we're getting from others, LDP, UAP, you name it, they basically got hung out to dry. Yeah, you're the candidate. See you later. Bye. No help, no assistance, nothing. We, on the other hand, we're helping us through as much as we can, and it's excuse me, that never stops here. We're helping them through as much as we can, but they're genuine independents. And for example, at one point, one of them rang early in the piece and said, "How do I preference?" I said, "That's up to you. You're an independent. As long as you can justify to your people how you've preferenced and why, that's entirely okay. It is entirely okay." And they were shocked and pleased, and away they went. And that's the level of autonomy we ensure our independents have, as opposed to the poor other people. Again, I've been getting SMSs from all around the country. Palmer's stuffed us around. They've cut us out. They've preferenced against the people that we suggested we should preference. We've got no autonomy. And so it's just crumbling. The whole edifice is now coming down. And that's as it should be. This is, as I said, the disruptor election. The next one's going to be bloody fantastic. And we've got a Victorian state election coming up at the end of the year, I think. And so watch this space. Now, as a warning to everybody, I'll let you get a question in shortly. This is going to be messy and untidy and frustrating. And that's part of the process until we settle down, grow up and realize, okay, this is how it works. And this is how we're going to live life from now on. More engaged, more on the front foot, understanding what's going on and holding our candidates to account.
And I think the process of candidature has been opened up to people now. They're starting to get a bit more of a feel for what the A1 plan was when you started trying to attract not just followers, but potential candidates. I mean, you've done it in a very smart, clever way, making sure that you're not just getting a whole pile of people rushing to you, and you discover after the event that they've got, well, criminal charges that don't necessarily align with the party at all. And I think you've been able to exclude all that, and that is to be commended at every turn. So thank you for that. Can I also just add, I'm very disappointed to hear your mobile phone ringtone. I was really hoping that it would be Ride of the Valkyrie or something like that. It just sounded a little sort of soft for Ricardo Bosi. Just thought I'd mention.
That's my wife. She's indisposed, so I've got the phones at the moment. Oh man, and the quality of the candidates, you've spoken about it, Carl. The actual individuals. These are mature, smart, tough, experienced, knowledgeable people. These people don't need to be, they know about life. You mentioned Lindsay Temple. What a champion. And Matty Fry down in Barker. And they're all of them. They've all had real lives. These people are experienced, smart dudes. It's not going to take them long to get the lay of the land and get to work. And as I said 100 times, out of 25 million people, you don't think we can find 151 lower house MPs and 76 senators that can improve on the current lot of imbeciles we've got in Canberra. I mean, please.
That's right.
Please.
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
right.
It shouldn't be hard to find a bunch of people who can do a much better job. You're 100% right about that. Ricardo, a lot of people are concerned that this election is actually real. Oh, we seem to be dropping in and out. We don't know if we've still got it
No,
all
I can
happening.
still hear you.
Fingers crossed.
No, you're good. I've got you. Yeah, no, I've got you.
Oh, good. So a lot of people are concerned now. I'm led to believe that the electoral writ has to be available to view it at the polling places, or at least a copy of it. I'm also led to believe that the electoral writ should have a seal on it, probably the Governor-General's seal.
Yes.
Any pictures that I've seen of the current writ have the Governor-General signing it as a witness and some bloke called Ben Morton, a special minister of state nobody's ever heard of, actually ordering the election. Is that right?
A couple of things. You don't actually need to have a copy available at each polling station. What you need to do is have it published in the press. It's got to be published. It must be. There must be a seal. It must be appropriately signed by authorised people. And none of that's true. You're right. There is nothing legitimate about this election. We know that. There's nothing legitimate about the Parliament. We know that too. We know there's nothing legitimate about the Australia Act, about the removal of the Great Seal in '73. There's nothing legitimate about, and we have known this the whole time. The whole time. We know it's nonsense. And the common law people like telling me I'm guilty. What is it? Misprision of treason. And we're going to arrest you. And I go, great, fill your boots. Just let me get into the Parliament, kick the doors open, let you buggers in to sort out the detail. And I've said this 100 times. I know that. I know that. And that's not a problem. Because as I said, now, many people may have heard this, but for those who haven't, we're dealing with reality and perceived reality. Now, let's say the common law people are absolutely correct, and we grant them everything that they can't agree upon themselves, because unfortunately many can't agree the colour of an orange. But let's say the common law people are exactly correct. It doesn't matter, for the simple reason that, you've got, what, 200,000, 250,000 people across the country that know, understand and believe what you're talking about. That means you've got, what, 25,750,000 that don't know and don't care. And it'll take you a month of Sundays to explain it to them. And so what's important is this election, and other people might be right and I might be wrong, and I've said this the whole time, we come up the west slope, somebody else comes up the east slope, whoever gets to the top, 10 out of 10, well done, you win. But our approach has been politics simply because if we have an election, even if it's unconstitutional and illegal and all that, if I get elected tomorrow, then that's 100,000 real people that I represent in the minds of the people who believe the system is sound. Now, if they believe the Australian government is sound, then that's something I can take to the bank. And all of a sudden, I now am an elected representative. They have to take me seriously. Not because I'm some guy on YouTube, because there's a million people gobbling off on YouTube. But the moment any one of us, Craig Cole, Dominique, anyone, Matty Fry, Vince Pennell, all these guys, as soon as one of them gets that elected status, legitimate or not, in the eyes of the Constitution, 25 million people will look at that person and go, yeah, you're a senator. Yep, you're a lower house MP. They have to take us now seriously. And that's what leadership of this freedom movement needs. It needs that public legitimacy, if that makes sense, because we haven't had that. We've had this movement of, some well-intentioned people and some quite deceptive and disingenuous people trying to split it. And so it looks a bit messy, and that's fine too. That's revolutions. Revolutions are always messy. At least this one's peaceful. But once we get somebody in a parliament.
What I've noticed, Rick, is we've actually got some street fighters in there, mate. That's what I see with the A1 people. You know what I mean? They've actually, and I say street fighter, not as in being violent. You know exactly what I mean. They're streetwise. They've grown up, as you said, Rick, and they're the people that are going to be able to get in there and actually do the damage, right, which needs to be done. Okay, but yeah, we're seeing even Dean McRae, street fighter. We've got independents that seem to be running that are going to win their seats at our street. So I think you're going to have a good little. I think you're going to have a good little pack in there. Actually, I think you're going to have a good team to pick from, Captain Bosi.
Oh no, I'll be one of the crew. But I think you're right, Dave. There's a possibility that we're going to get enough independents in there to stop Liberal Labor from forming government. And
it would be spectacular.
Yeah, it will. It's not going to be pretty, but it'll be a lot of fun.
But then the real game starts, doesn't it? You're going to have, let's say, and I've got a feeling we're going to get between 60 and 70 independents in there. Now, if that happens, then at the lower end of that number, then clearly a coalition is going to need to be formed with one or the other. Now, how do you decide, and how will the power sharing work in such an agreement like that? Clearly, the major party will keep the prime ministership, if you like, and probably most of the cabinet positions. Will the independents be able to fight for cabinet positions? That's what we really need, because that's where, well, the little stories are made up and churned and turned out to us then. The secrets are all hidden in cabinet. Is there a chance that our independents can get in there?
Well, we've been very clear on this from the get-go. Our job is not to get our snout in the trough for 3 years and negotiate with anybody. Our job is to prevent either party from forming government, not in an anarchistic and thoughtless way. But this is a way of saying to the people, because here's what happens. Imagine, and that's interesting you mentioned 60, because that's plus or minus not too much of a degree of error that we've been looking at as well. There's going to be a big chunk of us in there. And it's going to be, and people, and what's the media squeal and carry on like stuck pigs, and we don't care. Go suck a 12 gauge. That's what the media should do, as far as I'm concerned. But what's going to happen is this: some might try to, some of the independents will go along, the bogus independents, like the Climate 200 mob and people like that. They might try to provide guaranteed supply for one of the two majors to give them the 76 seats they need plus a speaker. That's not our job. It's never been our job. Our job, as far as anyone's concerned, we've said this publicly, our job is to prevent them from forming government in order to clean up, get rid of the two objectives, get rid of the COVID mandates, and the second part is to clean up the electoral system in order to make sure we get a free and fair election, because this is the disruptor. So imagine you've got 60-odd independents using your numbers, and let's say there's enough there to prevent either Liberal or Labor from forming government, and our objective is to hold them to account, not hold them to account rather, is go back to the polls, and then we can have another election, and we're slowly going through this messy process. Now, I reckon Liberal and Labor they'll form a Liberal-Labor coalition rather than allow that to happen. And then the last shred of camouflage will have dropped, and the people will realise that the Liberal-Labor are two wings of the same bird. That is a major achievement for us as a group of individuals. Whatever the personal pain that the population might feel about having to go back to the polls, please, we're saving the country, and you have to vote twice in 3 months. What a tragedy. I mean, people died for this freedom that we're not, that we were gifted. We never earned, it was gifted to us. And so, no, we're not going to form government with anybody. Our job is to reveal the truth of what is going on to the point where the people realise it's Labor, Liberal, National Green, and you can throw UAP in that as well, has been destroying the country. That's our job. It is not to get our snuff in the trough.
So a lot of people are going to be then wondering what comes after that. So once you've got in, you're able to expose the bastardry, the lies, the obfuscation, pull back the curtain, so to speak. Show us the wizard. What is going to be that next step?
All right. Let's say we've had the election. This election coming up, there's enough of us in there to force another election. That'll be a cleaner election, not a clean one, but a cleaner one. But depending on what can happen, we might have this executive council, which is the correct terminology, not a cabinet, but an executive council under the Governor General to do what's got to be done. And we agree as a group that what's got to be done is remove all the COVID mandates and clean up the electoral system to allow a free and fair election. Give us 3 months to do that. I don't think the people will buy that. I really do. They will buy it.
Yep. And
then we go to this election and say, look, we're in a caretaker mode. No major policy decisions are taking except for anything to do with COVID. And away we go. So just bubble along as you like. No change. And we tidy it up and we go to an election. Now, what happens after that? Look at this document here. 2 years' work. Australia One policies. Yep. Now, I want to talk about one, not as an advertisement, but to show you how much, as evidence of how much the Australian people have been stitched up in a way that's going to resonate with everybody. Tax. Now, I've said many times that we've got this 2% expenditure tax plan, and people laugh and go, 2% expenditure tax, how can you possibly raise enough money to run the country? Because we're in deficit every year anyway, and you're a bunch of loons. And I go, really? Well, here are the numbers, and the numbers come out of the RBA, okay, the Reserve Bank of Australia. So bear with me. I'm going to read the numbers. I want to get it right. Now, the reason I'm telling you this, so people will understand how much has been ripped out of their pockets for decades and why They can't afford. Let me just change the light here a fraction. There we go. Excuse me. Now, people can replay this and get the numbers, but here we go. Get a pen and paper ready. Commonwealth and state spending in 2018, and we'll just use 2018, 2019 numbers. Commonwealth and state spending was $735 billion. $735 billion, that's our spending. Total Commonwealth and state tax revenues, $511 billion. So you've already got a deficit of $220 billion. And this is the insanity of where we are, right? This is Josh Frydenberg, the man that couldn't run a corner store.
God.
Now, the 2% expenditure tax, and let me tell you which taxes we can get rid of. Watch this. You ready? There will be no personal income tax, no capital gains tax, no corporate tax, no trustee liability tax, no goods and services tax, no property tax, no stamp duty, no luxury car tax, no payroll tax, no fringe benefits tax, no superannuation tax. All gone. Zip. You earn $1,000 at work a week, you get $1,000 in your hand every single time. Now, the total value of electronic, that's non-cash payments in 2019. So this is money that gets transferred. People are doing business every day, right? And money goes from one point A to point B. Expenditure. That's $255 billion each business day. So each business day, $225 billion goes backwards and forwards, non-cash transactions.
Wow.
There are 251 working days in that year, 251. Now you multiply that many dollars by 251 and then take 2% of it, because what we do is we take 2% out of anybody's expenditure, not profits, expenditure. And that comes up to a total of $1.3 trillion in revenue. $1.3 trillion in revenue. Now, if our expenditure was 735 and we're pulling in 1.3 trillion, we've got in excess of 500 billion surplus every year. Now, how is that possible? And this isn't Babylonian money magic like we've been stitched up with for the last 10,000 years. For those of you who know what that is. So what's happening is this. How is it that we can put a 2% tax on expenditure, and still make 1.3 trillion bucks? Because tax burden in Australia has been on the back of the PAYG earner. The poor schleb who's out there breaking his back every freaking day gets his pay packet, and when the pay's, let's say, easy numbers, $1,000 a week, and after tax, because it gets taken out immediately, he's left with $565 or something. He goes, oh shit. And then he's got to go shopping and pay GST and everything else. And you wonder why you can't get ahead. Now, as I've said before, people think they're paying 30 to 40% income tax and life is a bit tough. No, 60 to 70% depending on your spending profile with all the hidden taxes. And then you've got the regressive taxes like payroll tax. So employers pay extra for the privilege of employing people. How insane is that? So all of that goes. So this $1.3 trillion is available. Now, where does it come from? Well, it gets spread across the entire economy now. Everybody pays 2 cents in the dollar of every time they spend money, and that's it. But that includes the corporates, because as you know, every company, every trust, every corporation minimizes their tax. Their pre-tax dollars are up here, earnings, and then they get it down to zero, so they get zero profit because they've spent all this money. It's there, it goes other ways, but they spend that money and they pay zero tax. This is the best way to get everybody to pay their fair share. And all of a sudden, every dollar of that $255 billion a day in non-cash electronic transfers, 2 cents in the dollar. Now you watch what happens. Now even the companies are better off because there's no corporate tax. There's no more financial games trying to minimize tax or avoid tax or whatever they're getting their accountants to do. They don't have to anymore. Now, on a personal level for Jacko and Norrell out there, let's say they buy a house for 250K and the property prices go up and they get to sell it for 500. Guess how much they pay tax on that sale? Nothing. Not a cent. The person who buys it pays 2 cents in the dollar. That's the expenditure tax. But when you sell something for profit, you keep every cent of it. What that means is the average punter out there is going to get 2 to 3 times his normal pay. So let's say his gross pay was $1,000 a week, and actually came home with 500. He'll be coming home with his 500, with his total $1,000 a week. And then in that, he gets to spend his money his way, her money her way. That's why this is just an example of how badly the Australian people have been robbed blind for decades. And this money did not go into consolidated revenue. This money went straight to special interests overseas, like the Clinton Foundation, $500 million between Julia Gillard and Julie Bishop. There's $500 million, $500 billion, $500 million.
Yep.
Direction, $500 million, $500 million straight to the Clinton Foundation, $100 million a year to Hamas and another terrorist organisation. You know, they spend money like drunken sailors. And all of a sudden, if we curtail the pissing the money up against the wall and give the money back to the people, you know what's going to happen to the economy? We currently have $1 trillion economy, and all of a sudden it'll be a $2 trillion economy and a $3 trillion economy, and we're going to be the healthiest, wealthiest, happiest country on the planet. And they'll be queuing up to come in. And the average Aussie now, and here's the best part of it all. You don't have mum and dad working 2.5 jobs and sending their kids off to the re-education camp at preschool, but for 6-month-old. Mum and dad, one of them can stay at home, and we don't care who it is, but a family needs a parent at home. And they get to stay at home. And now the average Australian will be able to fall in love, get married, buy a house, have kids, raise them, educate them, go on holidays and leave a little nest egg for them when they die. Now, what's good for the kids and the family's got to be good for the country. And one breadwinner will be enough to do all of that. Now, how does that sound?
Amen.
It sounds like you're taking us back to the 1950s, Rick.
The best part of the 50s, mate, because I can tell you and I are of that vintage, and Dave, so you were all from that same period of time. And are things better today than they were then? Yeah, but by and large, I've got to tell you, it was a much more decent society. It was a wealthier society. It was a healthier society.
Much healthier.
And the best.
Much healthier.
I think you've just touched on a really, really serious point. Society isn't like it was back in the 50s and the 60s. I suppose the 60s was where society grew up, supposedly, free love and all that sort of stuff. But we have lost the wholesomeness, if you like, of family values. We've seen what's happened in America with a large portion of the male black side of the population now incarcerated. They've got very strict 3 strikes, you're out sort of laws. So they removed the male parental influence from a lot of kids in America. We've seen that happen here in Australia too. Ricardo, if you were to get in, there are a lot of people who are caught up in child support agency things. There are a lot of men who feel they've been treated with great injustice by those sorts of agencies. There are a lot of cases, and in fact, I know of 2 friends of mine particularly who are going through it at the moment, where accusations have been made without any form of proof whatsoever, and have been proven to be false accusations. But there is now no comeback on people who make those kinds of false accusations. So much of our legislation has to either have a line drawn through it completely or be changed. Do you trust the people that we're electing to be able to do that?
At the moment, no. Absolutely not. They've created this, and I was one of those people going through that system. And you can thank the Family Court of Australia for creating Ricardo Bosi, the politician, because Ricardo Bosi, the retired army officer consultant, had no idea about this world until I was subjected to exactly that, the family law, and I started going down one rabbit hole, then another, then another, then another, and all of a sudden I realised, okay, bigger game at play. So I'm a product of their duplicity, their disingenuousness, and their outright corruption. So that, you know, I am their creation. I am Frankenstein come back to kill them, and I mean it.
And I've always thought that. A lot of people say. Okay, sorry, you go, Dave. So I've always thought that since 73. Anyway, you know, if we went back to 73 and we just went into our, you know, whatever it is, the constitutional process, and removed every amendment that was ever put in, we'd probably come back to something that was structured that we could actually start with, because this is how they've done it. They've just taken our laws and put amendments in. You know, I mean, the laws were always there. It was the amendments to the laws that have got us, you know. So if we do go back, if we do win, an easy way to start the process, I think, Rick, will be go back to 73 or 71 or something and go, right, every amendment from here on up, scratch it. Now hit the button and see what we got left.
And that's
and
part
of
what
the basis to start with.
Yeah, well, that's you've hit the nail on the head, mate. Finding that point in history where we can agree there was something that resembled legitimate law in this country, because if you go back, we'll go back to 86. No, that you go back further. Oh, okay, let's go back to 73. Oh, hang on, we're to go, and that's why we've said as a start point, and we're happy to negotiate at the start point. We just need this point in history where enough of us believe that there was a legitimate government. Ours is the 1901 Constitution with the eight lawful amendments. But then again, it's been pointed out to us that there were some dramas shortly after the Constitution was passed anyway, and so it's going to be hard. But we've just got to pick a point in history which is sufficiently close to our own point in time, but not so close that we're stuck with bad laws. And we have to transition from this agreed point in history and then move through a process to where we get to an agreed future. Now, our solution to that, and we're all ears, but we're the only organisation with an idea on what we want to do. So we go back to whether it's 73 or the 1901 Constitution with the 8 lawful amendments, whatever that agreed start point is. And then we have the Constitutional Convention preceded by this executive process, because the 1901 Constitution is wholly insufficient for a 21st century world. It really is. We'd like to think it is, but it's not. Even the founding fathers admitted, Australian founding fathers said there was much to be written, but the pen lies firmly in the hand of the Australian people. And so that's why we've got this. And all of this is to start a discussion so people understand. Let's pick a point in history that we agree we can start from there. And as Dave said, all this other nonsense, sorry, it's not lawful. So let's just ditch it. But we've got to do it in a measured and careful way to make sure we don't cause collapse, because economies are very robust, but they can also be very fragile. If you pull the wrong leg out from under the table, the whole thing falls over. Supply chains, as we are learning, can be ruined quite quickly. So we have this agreed start point where history starts, or where we can start, and then we move forward. But we have this Constitutional Convention, a genuine one, a serious one. And I've got a warning to everybody: if any politician is in favour of one of these options, don't go for it, because the politicians always pick one that suits them, like they did in 1999, where Emeritus Professor of Law David Flint described the alleged Republican Constitution, where they just replaced the Queen with the President and appointed President. He said quite rightly that the Prime Minister could more easily sack the President than he could sack his own driver. And that's the sort of nonsense they're going to build into this. They want totalitarian power. They want to make this effective and efficient, like a business. But the trouble is, if you do that, it's easy for a tyrant to get in. So the people have to be shown options for what parts comprise a good constitution, what they like, what they don't like, the advantages of one method over the disadvantages over another. Let them decide, and it requires the majority of people in the majority of states to agree to it. And then we can seriously move forward in a whole new way. But this will take some time, and it requires a measured, intelligent plan, not the current crop of lunatics that we have running Canberra, because they couldn't do it anyway. You take any Polly away from his minders and the talking points of the day, and they'd be dumbfounded. I mean, I've been on my hind legs for 6 hours straight in Victoria in a park on a Sunday afternoon, answering unmoderated questions. Get any politician, current standing politician, to do that. They couldn't do it, not without getting stoned. And I don't mean in the good way.
Rick, a lot of people are wondering, given the way that people have been kept out of or been sacked from jobs because they've decided not to comply with these mandates, which is your perfect right to not comply with a mandate. A mandate doesn't mean compulsory, people. Wake the fuck up. So what can be done with a new government to help these people gain some confidence in being able to return to the workforce? And could a new government, mandate that these businesses who now seem to be moving in the direction of maintaining these government mandates for only keeping vaccinated people in a job, I'm hearing stories that they are being given great tax benefits to do this, company tax benefits to only employ vaccinated people and to keep the unvaxxed out. There has to be a punishment, Rick, and it has to be bloody severe. Can we expect something in this next?
Oh, not in this one, but the one after this, yeah, there will be, because what we'll be doing is, and the people need to, you're on the money again, mate. The people need to see evidence that there are consequences for bad decisions. And so Nuremberg 2.0 will take place. And it won't be a game as such. It'll be very serious business. But we need to show, for example, a former prime minister being manacled and frog marched off to prison, charged and then tried in an appropriate court of law, and if found guilty, punished. Then we need to see, I don't know, maybe a general, admiral, air marshal. Maybe we need to see a high court judge who might be a pedophile, and they need to see real evidence. Because I can tell you, like me, I'm sure there's a million people out there. We're sick and tired of waiting for the arrests. I want the arrests to start yesterday, and the people want to see that. So at the highest level, those people are going to have to be arrested, and get the low-hanging fruit and show the people we're serious. Because the whole process will take a long time, and we were going to go all the way to the bottom. Nobody will escape this. The doctors that should have known better and kept injecting kids and watching them die, they will eventually pay. The media who were silent, they will eventually pay. And I've got to tell you, I am sick to death. Like, again, many people saying, I had to keep my job. Really? So you wanted to keep paying your mortgage, so you killed children, knowing that this stuff was poison. Sorry, that's not going to wash. That's just not going to wash. But so having said that, everybody's going to have to face the consequences. There will be a reckoning. But we're going to start with some big names first from just about every category. If they are guilty, and if found guilty of a serious enough offence, then they're going to pay. Then we're going to bring back capital punishment. And if not capital punishment, life imprisonment without the possibility of parole.
Am I the governor?
What about full asset stripping?
Sorry?
I'm just saying, Rick, am I the governor general by then?
Sorry, you did it again. One of you, please.
Sorry. Dave said he thinks you'll be Governor General by then.
Oh God, no thanks. My job is to get this thing fixed and rolling, and then hand it to the people and let them go. My heroes in political history are people like George Washington. They actually, I don't know if you know this, Washington led the Revolutionary Army. He won the Revolutionary War against the greatest superpower of the time, Great Britain. And at the end of it, they wanted to make him king, believe it or not. You are now the king. Your Royal Highness, George Washington. And he said, you got to be kidding me. We just fought a war to get rid of these tyrants, and you want to create a new one? Please. And he said, no. So they made him president. And after 2 4-year terms, he resigned. Now, at the time, it was alleged that King George said, if he does this, he is the greatest man alive. And Napoleon said, if he does this, his name will be elevated throughout history while mine is in the swirls of revolution, because these people just want power. And Washington said no. Now, he had some predecessors too. Cincinnatus in ancient Rome, who was called in, saved Rome, and they wanted to make him the emperor. He said, no, I'm going back to my farm. Thanks very much. I've cleaned up the mess. These are my heroes. And if you want to know something about a man or a woman, find out who their heroes are. And they're mine. I mean, a man that can have the world at his feet, and he says, no, the people must be given their liberty back. It's their liberty, not mine. No man or woman stands above any other man or woman. We all are made in the image of God. We all have that divine spark. We are equal, not in our capabilities, of course not, but in our rights to live our life, to have our life, our liberty, and our property, and not be interfered with somebody else, as long as we're not interfering with them. And so my job is to get in, help fix the system, and then hand it over to the people and let them do it. Because I can tell you, 25 million Australians, there's got to be, it's easy enough to find great people to do this job. There really is.
A lot of questions being asked about diversity, and I guess that leads to, I know that the Labor plan for diversity is throw open the borders and see how many boats can arrive in the fastest possible time. So what do you have? Does A1 have a plan for diversity that's slightly more restrained?
Fucking diversity, give me a break. Get somebody to define diversity. When they make those nonsense statements, you need different coloured people, do you? Okay. Well, we've got different coloured people. Why is that a criteria? Why are you so dense that you think different colour skin makes us better or worse? There's a thing called social cohesion, by the way, and I love cultural vibrancy. That's one of our pillars. We need a culturally vibrant country, because otherwise we go backwards in time. Closed cultures that don't engage with the rest of the world invariably become stultified and cease to grow. The Australian Aborigines are a classic example. 10,000 years ago, everybody was on the same wicket. 10,000 years later, the rest of the world, because they're constantly bumping into each other, whether it's through trade or war or whatever, that constant interaction meant that ideas were passed on and whatever. The Aborigines isolated 10,000 years. And what happened? When Cook turned up, he actually handed over. He did the trading with trinkets to see if it was useful, and he did the same in Hawaii. Now, when he went back after, when they came back later, not Cook personally, but when the other explorers followed up, they found that the Tahitians and the Fijians and the rest of them had used the trinkets. The Australian Aborigines didn't even know what to do with it, so they found them discarded. That's not a slight on the Aborigines. It's an example. It's an object lesson in what happens if you remain socially closed to the world. So, just for common sense and our own well-being, we need to be culturally vibrant. Having said that, you've got to be careful who you bring into the country. And let me give you an example.
Yeah.
Let's talk freedom of religion. Okay, let's have diversity in religion. Okay, well, up to a point. Because what, you want more Satanists? That's apparently a legitimate reason, a religion. Is that what you want? And people go, oh, you're being stupid. No, I'm not. There's a Church of Satanism in southeast Queensland that wants the right to kill kids.
Yeah.
So we have every right to decide who comes into our country. We really do. This is our home. This isn't a camping ground and investment opportunity. And that's what the objective of the globalists was, to break down the concept of a national sovereign state. They wanted open borders for everybody. Why? So we can be shitholes like the rest of the planet? Because I've lived and worked in some bloody awful places. And I can tell you what, every culture has many parts, but at the heart of every culture is their spiritual beliefs. And the ones that have Christianity in the center of their spiritual beliefs are the most benevolent, the kindest. They've done more for planet than any other in the world. I'm not talking about religion, so don't be stupid. Your audience has to be more intelligent. The spiritual beliefs count. Now, as an example, the benevolence of the Christian world. Now, some people hate the British Empire for all the bad things they did. Well, how about we give them two cheers? Two cheers for the British Empire, to quote Dinesh D'Souza. One was the ending of slavery. Now, that was done by the British Parliament. Now, how did they do that? There was a freedom movement to stop slavery around the world. And many of the richest men in England, they call them the sugar barons, because they were stinking rich based on the sugar which was produced by the slave trade, the slaves.
Yep.
The UK actually spent half its GDP that year buying all the slaves, paying off the owners so they could release their slaves. Tell me another country on the planet that's ever done that. Just one. Take your time. Take your time. And the reason for that was because the Christian ethic that went through a series of individuals, British politicians, that decided we cannot tolerate slavery, we will end it globally. And they did. Now, that's the sort of people we want in Australia. Do we care what colour they are? Absolutely not. I've got some good friends, black as the ace of spades. They come from Kenya, but they're good, solid Christians. Now, let's just bear with me here. Just indulge me for a fraction. When we meet someone, we see their skin colour. That's the first thing we see. Or do they look like us? Their physical attributes. And this is where the asinine racist lives. Oh, you're black, I don't like it. Well, hang on. You put a black guy and a white guy side by side at a footy match and they're both cheering the same team. Then there's an emotional connection. They look at each other and go, you look different, but fuck, we're both for the Swans. Great. And you cheer and there's that emotional connection. There's the next level. There's a mental connection when you actually start thinking the same way. Yep. And you go, right, I get this guy. And all of a sudden the color doesn't count anymore. Even the emotional bit is of less importance because you're thinking. Then you get the next level, the fourth. So we've gone emotional, physical, emotional, mental. Now we go psychological. The psychological profile is the basis of how you make your decisions, which is what you value, what you don't value, how you consider it. So all of a sudden, those first three now don't matter anymore. What they look like doesn't matter. What you feel like, what they think like. Their psychology melds with ours because we have a similar basis to it, and we understand the same values. We love and hate the same things, and there's a coherence there. And then there's the last one, and the last one is your spiritual values. And once the spiritual values are in alignment with each other, the first four doesn't matter at all. Now, the idiots who say, "Oh, we want diversity," which means black people, or it means fucking different religions. They're just so childlike in their thinking. They cannot describe it. They're talking about what you look like and that sort of stuff. What we're talking about is social cohesion by a group of people who have the same value sets. We don't care what color they are. We don't care what religion, God they pray to, and I mean it. But you need cohesion and you need vibrancy. But I tell you, there's one that's more important than the other because I've lived and worked in a lot of places, and you can have all the vibrancy you want, but if there's no cohesion, it's not a place you want to live.
Yeah. No, it's a very uncomfortable place to be trying to shackle yourself down and make a living. Ricardo, getting a lot of people who are asking, I'm just trying to skim through some of the questions. People are very concerned about what happens if we don't get a some sort of say after this election tomorrow. What if the result is stolen from us in such a way that, you know, any independent that gets in is just simply going to be there making up the numbers and warming the seats? I don't think the people are going to stand for that, from what I'm seeing.
No, they won't, and that's the good thing. And as a good plans officer, you go through a range of possible futures, and you always got to consider the catastrophic worst. Even if it might be unlikely, you got to consider it. And the worst possible outcome tomorrow is no independent gets in, and we've got business as usual with Liberal and Labor pretending to be two separate parties. Right? That's the worst of all possible futures. What do? We keep fighting. Nothing changes. But now we've got a nation that's awake. See, we are really different today than we were 6 months ago when Dave Grease said, "That's it, I'm off to Canberra." I mean, the country has changed so profoundly. Even the double vaxxers saying, "That's it, I've had a gutful." And so we couldn't stop this movement even if we tried to. Even if we tried, not that anybody we would want to, but if we would. So what's going to happen is this: worst possible case, we've got business as usual. We'll be back in Canberra, and we're going to stop them this time because we're going to get more and more and more people. And if that's what it takes to get Australia free, then that's what we're going to do. I got asked the same question when I ran 3 years ago as a Senate candidate for Bernardi's Conservatives. What are you going to do if you don't get elected? I said, nothing. We just keep going. We're not going to stop. Win or lose makes no difference. We keep driving forward. Now, all the other pretenders to the throne, all these, sincere and thoughtful political candidates that care deeply for the country, where the fuck are they now? Nowhere, I can tell you. We're still here. We're still fighting, and we'll just keep going. We fight till we win. I'm not a politician. I'm a soldier. I love winning, but I hate losing even more. So worst possible case, we just keep driving forward and we don't stop because we will wear them out because they're already terrified.
Ricardo, we've got a lot of people joining us from other parts of the world tonight, throwing in questions and encouraging you and wishing that they had someone like you in their country. Are you the only person like standing up in the world?
I'm a bit like Peck's Paste. A little goes a long way. You don't want too many Ricardo Bosis around, I can tell you. Look, there's people. Look, I'm just a simple soldier. I really am. I didn't get past year 12, but I can read. And if you can read and learn and listen, you make something of yourself. And everybody in this country's got to realize they got a role to play. Everybody around the planet. I said it on stage in Canberra one day. I said, say your name, just to yourself. Say your name. What does it mean? Make it mean something. It's yours. It's a gift. I am, fill in the blank. What does it mean? Well, make it mean something. Every one of you out there has something to do. And I tell the story of Nick Vujicic. Nick Vujicic is the son of Serbian parents who was born in Australia, suffering from tetraamelia syndrome. And tetraamelia syndrome means you've got no arms and legs. And there's Nick. Think about this little boy's life, what it was like. All he's got is this tiny little stump of a foot. He calls it his flipper. Now imagine this poor little guy, 1 year of age, 2, 3, 4, 5, can't pick up things, can't walk. He sees all his mates running around. By the age of 8, Nick wanted to commit suicide. As he got older, he said, what future do I have? I can't even hold a girl's hand. Fast forward. Now, this guy, this is an Australian. This is a great Australian. This guy should be on the $500 bill because here's an example of what seems to be insuperable adversity. And yet, now fast forward, he's in his late 30s now. If he's not hit 40, I'm not quite sure. He's the CEO of a corporation. He's appeared in a couple of films. He's a pastor. He has changed the lives of millions, and I mean millions, 7 figures of people around the world in telling them what they can do with their lives no matter how tough their life is. He goes to prisons and speaks to the prisoners, and they leave in tears. He touches their hearts. Now, here's a life that the full-term abortion enthusiasts would have snuffed out because he didn't have arms and legs, because by their metrics, this life is not worth living. Well, fuck you. You didn't create the life, God did. It's God's life, it's not yours. And here's a boy with no arms and legs, and he has changed the life for the better. And I'm talking through India and Calcutta, through the prisons in the United States, to schools around Australia. Nick Vujicic, look him up. This guy has done more than most on the planet. No arms, no legs, but a faith in himself and a faith in God. And that's what we need. And that's the message to everybody on the planet. Look, we've all been given gifts. We've gained skills from the challenges we've overcome, and some of us have been burdened terribly. It's what you do with that matters. Not the cards you're dealt, the way they're played, not what you inherit, what you do with your inheritance. This is the simple message of A1. Every one of us has a potential beyond our understandings. And all we got to do is trust that we can get there. It'll take time. It took me 60 years to find myself. It's okay.
Yeah.
Every one of us has a job to play. Every one of us. Oh, just on that before I go, do yourselves a favor tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Get online. You can watch it for free. It's called Butterfly Circus. Nick Vujicic is in it. And I tell you, at the end of that, you'll be in tears. So get the Kleenex box. Gentlemen, I recommend you do the same because it's going to hit you harder than you can imagine. Butterfly Circus, Nick Vujicic online, goes for it's only about 15, 20 minutes long. Short film. But one of the most profoundly important films you can possibly imagine. So watch it. Butterfly Circus tonight. Do it straight after this.
Rick, you've been on for an hour. It was an hour I didn't expect you'd give me on a Friday night at the end of a very long election campaign. I can't thank you enough for joining me, and the Guru Dave for coming on and having a chat. It's nice to see him on a real channel again now. I don't know how long I'll be able to stay on now that I've had him, though. They'll probably ban me that now they've seen your face, Dave.
Yeah, I'm a bit of a censor bomb at the moment. I'm really getting hammered. But anyway, that just means that, we're there, guys, aren't we? Hey,
we're over the target.
Yeah, we're over the target. We're pretty close.
So, Ricardo, I can't let you go without asking if we can get something from you. Maybe come and join us one day next week after the result. We know what the lay of the land is beginning to look like. I think people are going to be very interested in hearing your perception, your thoughts going forward as you head, hopefully, to Canberra to be one of the voices for us.
You'll be one of the few people that gets to interview the member for Greenway, mate. The mainstream media can get stuff. There's you, there's Maria Z. I think that's about it.
Oh, well, the Aussie Cossack will be finding it a bit hard at the moment. They won't let him take his mobile phone into the cell. But speaking of that, let's just touch on the Cossack again. We wish him all the best in the fight ahead, and we are trying to support him with our postcard campaign. Send a card to the Cossack. So if you are, and I can even put the address up, folks. If you are remotely interested in raising the Cossacks, thoughts and feelings, I guess, at the moment, because he's not terribly chuffed with where he is. I'll put up the postcard. There you go. Send the Cossack a postcard. Simeon Boykov at Private Bag 144 Silverwater, New South Wales 1811. And we'd love to see the corrective services delivering bags and bags of postcards every day to the Aussie Cossack in jail.
Oh, I think that is an outstanding idea. We'll put that up on our social media. We'll get as many A1 supporters to do that. Well, let's flood. Where is he? Silverwater? Did you say?
Yeah,
Silverwater.
Okay, let's flood Silverwater with so many letters. I don't know what to do.
All right, well, I'll send you the postcard graphic, mate. I think you probably own it anyway. It was made by one of your staff. So, we'll go from there.
All right,
Rick, once again, thank you very much for joining us, and Dave, you too. Listen, all the best for tomorrow. I know all the hard work's over and done now. You've just got to go out and shake the babies and kiss the hands tomorrow as the voting continues. So, all the best for that, and all power to the whole team, everybody on the A1 supported team, and every independent who is standing, and every true independent who is standing. Not somebody who's standing so that they can pass their votes on to Labor or Liberal or the majors. Every true independent, you have our support. We will keep supporting you. And you've got people like Ricardo who are just waiting for you to come and join him, hopefully in Canberra. It would be absolutely marvellous to see. I can't wait.
Oh, I've got to do one last piece, if I can, just very quickly on the election tomorrow. there's been a lot of talk about what constitutes a legal vote for the Senate, and the AEC personnel will tell you it's 6 above the line or 12 below the line. And I've been saying, well, that's true, but there's this concept called vote save, where 1 above the line or 6 below the line is a formal vote. And now we've been headbutting AEC stuff all day, and we've validated this with the AEC. One box above the line or 6 below is a valid vote. It is a formal vote. It will be counted, despite what some of the YouTube loudmouths have been saying. Now, what's the importance of that? Well, when I was calculating for how I should recommend voters vote for the Senate, I went through and I trickled down all the preferences to see where a vote for a particular individual might go, and it all ends up with Liberal or Labor. So they want you to put 6 above the line, because you are forced now to vote for people who will preference them, and eventually they get the quota, and you'll end up with a normal Senate. And what I'm saying is vote 1 above or 6 below only, because then the vote exhausts. You will not be forced to preference Liberal or Labor. And dear me, so sad, Liberal and Labor might miss out on their standard 4 seats in the Senate out of 6 available. So it's legal, it's lawful, it's formal. We've checked with the AEC 100 times. Ignore the wannabes on YouTube that don't know what they're talking about. 1 box above the line, 6 below, it's a formal vote. And guess what? Liberal and Labor can go to hell.
Amen.
Yep, and hopefully we can send them there tomorrow. That'd be bloody awesome. Gentlemen, thank you very much, Ricardo. All power to you, and I can't wait to talk to you next week as we chew over what the result of tomorrow is going to be, and a very exciting future, I think, facing us all. I'm very for it. I might be a bit overly optimistic about how many independents are going to win seats, but hey, listen, you've got to talk the game up, haven't you?
Absolutely.
And just get a quick plug in, Carl. Tomorrow night, we're going to, Kaz and I, if she's better, we're going to run a rotating vote from the ABC. We're going to actually live stream it, put the volume down, and we're going to actually have people ringing in and coming in. So Carl and a few others, but there's a couple of people that are coming through the night and have a chat. And we're just going to watch how the vote goes, Rick, so we can actually, be right on top of it and record the vote coming in. We'll find some funny clusters coming in there probably, and we'll be able to have a look at that. So, that's what we're going to do on my channel.
Okay, cool.
We'll certainly be doing that. Certainly be doing that. And if Matty Fry and Vince do well over in South Australia, then they'll be getting a call too. I think Paul in South Australia, Ashley in Western Australia. And I tell you, I'm getting so much feedback from Queenslanders who have fallen in love with Lindsay Temple. He's a man you really want on your side. I mean, there's no messing around with him. He's a very clever, very smart, very direct gentleman, and he will represent Queensland brilliantly. So if you're looking for someone to vote for, A1 supported in the Senate in Queensland, vote for Lindsay Temple. He's got my vote and a whole heap of others that have been contacting me for the last week or so as people have been meeting him as he's travelled up and down through Queensland. It's really going well, Rick. Really, really going well.
Yeah,
let's win this, Australia.
Absolutely, let's win this, Australia. Gentlemen, thank you very much, and I look forward to talking to you both again next week as we try and chew through the results.
You bet. Thanks, guys.
Bye,
thanks,
mate.
folks. Like and subscribe if you would, because if I don't say that, the Aussie Cossack gets really shitty at me. All right. See you later,
Thanks,
guys.
guys. See you later.
See ya.
Bye. Good luck.